Hi everyone. Today we're looking at Caprice number 13 by Campagnoli. So just a reminder before I begin to check out the links below where you can find my full performance and subscribe to this channel so that you can listen to the new full performance that I'm currently working on. I'm going to record in a few days. And as well as the annotated manuscript or engraving, which is on the campagnoliproject.com, also linked below. So this one is a tricky Caprice. It's one of the harder ones that I mean, there are a lot of hard Caprices, but this would be towards the top for me. It's physically demanding. There's a lot of tricky technique things as well. But the main things we're going to be talking about today are string crossings and sort of this bariolage stroke that we have coming back a lot. And then there's also, this one is thankfully more performance oriented. So there's a lot of musical things you can do with that as well. And we'll take a look at a few of those. As you can probably see if you're looking in your score, there are absolutely no indications for shaping. And this was just a common thing that composers did back in Campagnoli's time. They left it up to the performer to do the interpretation. So I think that's a great thing. You can look at my full performance to see what I do. I'll talk about a few things, but I also encourage you to explore your own way to make this piece interesting and special. All right, so right from the beginning, we have these string crossings that jump over strings. So you may be tempted, and when I first saw this when I was a teenager, I was certainly tempted to put an octave fingering on it, right? So instead of hopping over the string, I wanted to play it like this. And go back and forth using 1 and 4 and playing octaves. However, coming back to it later, I realized that is not the intention with this piece. In fact, Campagnoli usually doesn't write into position unless he specifically indicates it. And it becomes a different challenge in a different way. It's not a left-hand challenge, it's a bow arm challenge. So you have to get over those strings without making a lot of extra noise, right? So this is going to require a lot of slow practice. And what we want to always do is stop the bow, rotate, and then play on the new string. And we don't want to do our rotation while we're moving the bow. So that's really important. That's going to take a lot of just careful, meticulous spot practice if you're not used to this stroke already. Now notice I'm really stopping my bow hard on the string when I practice this. That's not how I perform it though, right? I sort of let the bow taper off and have like sort of a martelé détaché stroke a little bit. Letting it go as you get faster and you get used to the string crossings in the stroke. But first start with that hard stop to get the rotation right. So as we speed up this stroke, we want to really, and this is going to be kind of a theme for the whole Caprice, is we want this to be bass driven, okay? So the bass notes are always the most important notes. They occur on the beat. The upper notes always occur off the beat. So that would give you a clear indication. So we want to have that bass line driving it, and the up bows can just be a bit of an afterthought, right? They're just echoing the same note, at least when you're playing octaves. So the bariolage sort of stroke. So first of all, with your left hand, this has to be more or less played as a triple stop, right? So sorry, that one obviously needs a little tuning. Right? So there's where I can practice my left hand, just making those into triple stops, so that I'm really grabbing each chord as just a unit. And then with the bow, we want to take that separately and practice that. So we always have this stroke, and measure 3 is always, again, hitting those bass notes. The upper note is just an afterthought. It's like a flick of your wrist, right? And you notice how I'm hopping down to the lower note again. So a little bit of that ski jump technique. And staying at the frog, really important for that. So then when we put them together, so there's a lot of material just within those, what are they, 4 or 5 measures? No, whatever it is, 6 or 7 measures. There's a lot of material, and there's a lot of opportunities to shape that into a musical line. So what I'm always doing is I'm taking the chords as a unit, right? If you can play the piano and you want to explore this on the piano, just to hear it without the technical viola stuff, that's a good way to do it. You can also block the chords and play them that way to get a feel for your line. So what I'm always trying to do is go toward the dissonant chords. So for instance, so measure 6, we get to that D sharp on the fourth measure, right? On the 4th beat. I'm sorry, it would be the F sharp on the 3rd beat, right? That's your dissonant. And then on the next measure, again, on the 3rd beat. So there's a little bit of a shaping pattern that goes along, right? Dum, bum, 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 right? And sometimes that changes, but just to kind of recognize where your line is going before you go back and put it all together. So you have a really clear picture of how you want to shape that, aside from the technique stuff, which is very hard in and of itself. Okay, so a lot of this is, there's a lot of back and forth between the octaves and the bariolage. So I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit, and we're gonna look at measure 37 for a minute. This is where the pattern changes a little bit for your bow, and just musically, we have this sort of displaced bowing pattern and displaced beats a little bit. So for that, I felt like it was getting very kind of stormy there, right? And agitated. And so I'm kind of, I'm letting the bow kind of just be a little bit more violent, or what's the right word? Just agitated. And I'm also clipping my notes just to kind of get at that displaced slurring pattern. So anytime you have something weird that pops up in these sort of caprices, it's always a good idea to bring it out because it's different, right? And it should sound a little weird because you've established a pattern and then you change the pattern, and you want that to come out because now that's interesting for your listener. It's something new. And then at measure 30, 36, 38, 39, going into 40, we have a slur going into the downbeat. When I learned this a long time ago, I noticed in my old score that I had taken that slur out, and don't take it out because it's actually, it's a hard little lick because you have to cross over the D string to get back to the G string, but it's supposed to be that way. So I'll play it for you, going from measure 38 again, slowly so you can see what happens. So what I do there is I really like snap the bow down and change the angle very quickly. And so it's actually almost like I'm stopping the bow, but I'm changing the angle so quickly that you don't hear the D string, or you shouldn't hear the D string anyway. And then we're back to our bariolage type stroke. So that is maybe a spot that you would have to explore a little bit and take apart technically. You can take it apart with without the left hand in there. And so when you're practicing it, stop the bow, rotate, and then play the G string. Now, one spot that I found particularly difficult was at measure 46, going on from there at the end. So what happens here is we're getting very tired because our bow arm is just, it's done, right? But we still have like kind of the hardest part of the piece left. And if you are like me and you like to memorize your pieces, this is where your memory also goes, whoa, what am I doing? Which part am I playing, right? So I found it very helpful to actually practice this with backwards bowing because it made my left hand and my bow arm remember in a different way what I was doing, right? Because what's hard about this caprice is keeping track of which string we're playing on with both the left hand and the right hand. And I find myself sometimes putting my fingers in the right place, but my bow somewhere else, or vice versa. So when you do backwards bowing, that kind of makes you think about it in a different way. So, sorry. As you can see, it's hard for me right now, even though I've been practicing this. So, you know, play it slowly and just keep at it with the backwards bowing, because if you can't play it really well backwards, that means that forwards it's still probably a little bit hard, or hard under a pressure situation. So, and then the other spot was going on at measure 51. So I go up into second position and I stay there for the latter half of that measure. we really want to rely on that bass line. If you're focused too much on the upper notes, then you'll lose the line and you'll forget where you are, especially if you're not using music. So lean into those bass notes. Sometimes give them a little bit more time if it's an important note. So at measure 50, I'm gonna play it for you so you can hear how I shape it and how I use those bass notes to kind of ground myself, like spend a little bit more time on the important ones. And that just gives me like a little bit more time to think and really like brings out the climactic sort of moment in this area, which it is. The piece kind of winds down after this. So. Okay, and so then we get into our last bariolage section, which takes us to the end. This, to me, it should sound, after all of this like crazy stuff that we've had and really digging in, I think it really needs to feel like it winds down here. And we go into an A flat 7 chord here too, which is a pretty unusual chord for, you know, late classical music. So so it really should feel like, ooh, what's going on here, right? So you're probably gonna have to spend more time in this section with your left hand to just get it to feel really solid. A lot of times you're keeping a position and maybe moving one note, right? So I'm rolling my hand there. So I kept my third finger down on the F that whole time, if you saw that. And then on this next measure, so as much as I can keep left hand fingers down when they carry over to the next chord, I'm always gonna do that. Because in tempo, it goes so fast, if you're picking up your fingers left and right, there's gonna be no hope to getting it in tune or playing it at the tempo you want. I also put a little bit of an echo. Let's see. On that little repeat of the second beat of, let's see, measure 56. And the fourth beat of measure 56 is an echo, right? So, so we finally come to that resting place at the end. It's interesting too, we start in E minor and sort of in E minor, although it's not written into the key signature, and it ends in G major, the relative major of E minor. So that's a little bit interesting. Also interesting that he didn't put a key signature. There are so many key changes and explorations throughout this piece. It really just wanders everywhere. So let's see, I hope I hit the major things. If you were looking for something specific and you didn't get it in this tutorial, please let me know. This is a really tricky one. Like I said, it's got a lot of just lots of substance in it. So I'd encourage you to use this tutorial as one of your tools. Definitely work on this a lot with your teacher if you, hopefully you have someone you can work with, and have fun with it, because it is a really cool piece and it's super rewarding to play. So again, subscribe to my channel so you can check out the newest recording of this when it comes out in probably a couple months. And I'll see you for the next one.